G'day, campers. How are you? I'm Scott Carson. Who do I identify as these days? I'm, like a dad, a man trying to make his way in the world. I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation about men being vulnerable, and is it safe for us? Is it where the challenges lie? And it's funny because I actually suggested this subject a little while ago, and I've had new perceptions since then. So it's actually been fantastic. So that's me. Down to you, Kenny.
Hello. Sorry about that. I'm just waking up still. It's quite early in London. My name's Kenny Mammarella D'Cruz. I'll tell you about now rather than, the big, long, glamorous story. Since lockdown, I've been holding weekday lunchtime mini men's groups. So it's lunchtime in the UK. It's probably nighttime for you lot in Australia. The object of the exercise is, as we're locked down, as issues might come up, whether it's being alone or being with friends, being with family, flatmates, children, whatever, stuff will come up, and it might be fear and insecurity. And I've wanted a place for men to be able to check in and speak out what's going on rather than think about it. And more than anything, be clear about what's being triggered rather than something's triggered unconsciously. And then it's either implosion and depression or explosion on other people. So for me, the name of the game at the moment is like self-awareness and taking the edge off and sharing with each other. It's like, I hate to use the term, it's like man up and talk about it. The power of vulnerability and the wisdom of the tribe. Oh, I need to pass it on. Over to you, Lisa.
Cool. I love that, Kenny. That's so cool. My name is Lisa Jane, and I'm an emotions practitioner, an author, and a speaker, and I am very cold. So you can see me sitting here going, this is Sydney cold, which is like nothing probably like you've experienced, Kenny. I am absolutely passionate about emotional evolution, and I have created an online platform which offers that to people. It's like the Uber of emotional wellbeing needs, just about to start off, and it's a very exciting initiative because it allows me to raise awareness on people looking to self-actualize first and take full responsibility for their emotional needs so that everything in their life can just be so much better than what it is now when we go from the outside in. So that's where I sit. And over to you, Angela.
Thank you, Lisa. So I am a leadership coach and emotional productivity trainer. So I'm passionate about emotions, just like Lisa. So I call it emotional productivity because for me, it is important that we recognize that every emotion matters, that it's not just the good stuff. And so that we can acknowledge that even the most negative emotions, and I always use negative in quotes, has a positive intention. And so that the ability to recognize those is absolutely crucial. And as Kenny was saying, it's the ability to have the self-awareness. So my mission this year is hashtag 52 emotions. So I explore one emotion every week, and I look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I find lots of articles and I share them, and I look at research and quotes and all sorts of things. And it's about expanding the consciousness of emotions are limiting or emotions are debilitating. Emotions are very useful. I mean, we have them for a reason. We don't make any single decision without them. So we need to know more about them. And especially in times like these, and funnily enough, I created this before Corona came around. I think we really need it more than ever. So I'm really happy that we're doing this together today, because vulnerability is one of those really big emotions that is totally misunderstood. We have a very limiting definition of what vulnerability means. And I think Brené Brown has expanded that quite considerably over the last couple of years, but I think we need to raise more awareness, especially when it comes to men. So this is where I give it back to you, Scott, because you've already got your mouth open. So I think you've got something to say.
Well, I've always got something to say. But on this topic of vulnerability, when we first started talking about it, Angela, and when the panel got put together a fair while ago, I was very much under the understanding that if a man was vulnerable, or not so much understanding, but under the oh, come on, words coming out. Under the pretense that actually vulnerable men were quite fearful for women, because when a man's vulnerable and he holds that space in the pure essence of just to love her and opens up his heart and puts it out in front of him, I didn't think women knew how to handle that. In my experiences in life and with the people that I've been around, that hasn't been a safe place, and it's been very difficult for me to navigate. So, keeping in mind, I'll give you a little bit of background on myself and the situation so that we can work through my vulnerability, because my perception on this has changed since we actually started this conversation. And it's changed because of the Campfire Project and the people in it. So the three people we have here today have been a major part in actually changing my perception on that. So I'm going to go a little bit backwards to go forwards. So as a young bloke that went through life doing things, different opportunities, and not really having a full grip on his emotions, being a pretty angry man for a long time, traveling the world, learning to sit back and listen a bit more, ending up in France with one of my best mates, and having a lot of trouble with his words when he said to me that he loved me. As I was leaving, saying goodbye, he's giving me a hug, and I said, I love you. He goes, I love you, mate. I sat with that, and I was hurting. I couldn't believe another man had told me he loved me. Who was he to tell me he loved me? For about 3 months, I was so angry with him. And not just a little bit angry, deep anger, challenging me to the bone. My wife actually says to me, what's wrong with you? You've been different since we got back from France. And I said, well, actually, I'm not okay with what happened. And I explained to her. She goes, you idiot. That's the best thing he could have given you, for him to tell you that he loves you. I didn't quite get it straight away. It's taken me time. It's taken me time to understand that I can love somebody without it being anything more than that. And that started opening up some stuff for me, like, can I just love people? Can I just love people? The answer is yes, I can. I had to go through a fair bit of heartache to get to the point of actually understanding that, love can be unconditional. You can see beyond somebody's pain and just understand it's their experience. But that vulnerability that he showed me, I was so uncomfortable with. Over time, I started to learn to use my vulnerability and just be open and speak my truth, and understanding that however I see things is my perception and nobody else's. And I just have to accept whatever perception they have. If we can work together to change the perception for both of us, I think that's a beautiful thing, so we can both grow. But I found myself in a position, and mainly amongst men and tradesmen, that I was becoming very vulnerable and open. And it's difficult for other men to be around, because we're not connecting, because I'm going deeper and deeper and deeper. And then I'm finding with women that when I was speaking to women, I would just go deeper with them, and it was great. It was a great conversation. When I asked for them to be honest and asked them with their partners, were they completely honest and open and vulnerable with them? They weren't. And my experiences as I grew, I got to know other men that were vulnerable, and I've got some beautiful men that are vulnerable. And then I started looking into their relationships and seeing that these beautiful men that were so open and so vulnerable were having such a hard time at home with their partners, because it wasn't accepted socially as men to be vulnerable. I still struggle with it now.
Can I say something? Because you and I mentioned this today.
Yeah.
And I thought I was sort of at first thinking that's the same for women, to feel vulnerable. But actually, now that you're talking about this, I'm remembering a time with my previous partner, and he was very in touch with his emotions. And I actually remember early on in that relationship finding that incredibly challenging for me, because I wasn't used to having a healthy relationship when I first met him. And I think, like probably a lot of women, in the unconscious, we have an expectation that we're going to be rescued, that we're going to be helped emotionally by our partners. Because back then I was still needing him to meet my emotional needs. So if I need him to do that, and that's the archetype of the wanting to be rescued sort of thing, that like consciously my adult self doesn't want that, but that part of me that still wants that sees a vulnerable man and goes, well, how safe am I going to be? Because like I want him to rescue me and he's vulnerable. And so the irony is, until I can become completely vulnerable and sit in my vulnerability, I can't allow a man to be completely vulnerable, because I think also on some level a man goes, well, I can't fully take off my armor. If he senses that he's still needed to be there for the woman, and like all this is unconscious, I'm sure, and this is just my take on it, so it could be totally off track. Until I can be completely vulnerable, a man can't really sit with me and feel comfortable to take off all the armor, because he might be going, well, I might have to rescue her. Like, is she going to expect me to meet her emotional needs? Am I going to have to, you know, do you know what I mean? So I think it actually is like, it's such an interrelationship that we have with vulnerability for both of us.
I agree completely. And one of the hardest things, and I'm only going to talk from my personal experience, because it's my deepest pain, to be honest, because here I am growing emotionally, learning all these different beautiful, wonderful things in life, teaching my son how to own his emotions. And I'll share a story about that in a second, but I've grown exponentially in the last 6-7 years, and I am extremely vulnerable. I'm happy to have any conversation and learn from that conversation, whereas my wife hasn't sat in the same places and enjoyed the same energy I have. So now I've got this real thirst for having this emotion and just sharing it and just living in it. And I scared the bejesus out of it. My mates on the circles I'm with, a lot of them are divorced because they can't work together with their partners. That scares them. And it's something for me that, which is the beautiful part of this, because sitting here right now on this panel are 3 people who I love with all my heart, that I can share my emotions with, that have actually taught me how to sit with my emotions and help me grow.
I wonder, sorry, go on.
Oh, come, Kenny, because it's like you feel it today.
I feel in a way I worked with this last night with a client actually, so it's very fresh for me. And listening to you right now, Scott, I feel like I'm very much with the man in you who can sit with your emotions, drop into your emotions and feel the depth of your emotions, and probably with that be there for other people, whether they're in pain or in joy, and allow them to be in their emotions and meet in those sacred places, rather than keep it on the surface of I'll fix you, I'll save you, I know how to survive this, etc., etc. What I worked with yesterday was a really, really lovely man who was concerned for his relationship, his fatherhood, and not quite knowing how to move on in his creative expression, in his relationship, in his own power. And to cut a long story short, the way I broke it down for him is, it seems that when he and his partner got together, they were young, And there were all those conversations about this is up with me and this is up with me and my family and my hurt, etc., etc. And it was in that young phase of life where I can fix you and you can fix me and we can be in the victim club together and never leave each other. And, you know, it was conditional survival love, which works to treat it. It's a phase and it's absolutely fine. And it's where some people choose to stay. And now 10, 20 years later, and it's a different situation because people have grown and changed. And the way that I set it up for him, and we got very clear very quickly about when his protector came into his life. So in essence, and I believe this for pretty much everyone really, is at some stage in life, there is a tragedy. It could be a really bad paper cut. It can be a death or boarding school or whatever it is, but a tragedy where the individual feels I'm vulnerable, I'm not protected, I don't know how to do this. So there's a vulnerable child. And at that stage, I feel this is when a protecting part shows up, who basically says, right, from now on, you are not going to be a vulnerable child. I will protect you. And with me, you will survive. So we have the vulnerable child and the protector, and people get to know the protector, and the protector's job is for that individual to survive. Nothing to do with living, nothing to do with thriving, no passion, no power, nothing. It's not its job. Its job is survival. And therefore, great to be with other people to survive. And this is where mainstream conditional love comes in, which is great for the economy because you're never good enough and you need to buy something. So we have the wounded child and the protector. And what I said to him is, now maybe it's time for the man in you to show up, because this child and the protector are kind of in limbo, waiting for safety. And, you know, it's time to live. You've outgrown survival. That's old. The war is over. So I introduced him to the man in him. And once the man showed up in him, that child's safe. So suddenly that vulnerable child, that wounded child, virtually disappeared. And we're back to the free spirit from before that tragedy, whatever the tragedy was. And he changed, and he's present, and he's safe. And once that free spirit is there, then not only is the man available to meet life and to respond to life and to drop into the depths and the fun and the passion of life, but survival is kind of in the bag and great information to inform the man. But more than anything, there's intuition, there's a sense of peace, there's a sense of nature, there's a sense of unconditional love. There's almost like the God part to shine through the eyes of the man and to show up in the world. And the way that the relationship, I understand, has changed is she's moved on. She's not in survival mode. She needs to be met. She doesn't need to be fixed. She needs to be heard. She doesn't need a good show to be saved. So now he is available for himself to take care of his child and not send his child in to do a man's job in the world. And he is available to her, to be with her in her pain, in her joy, in her passion, and everywhere else. And quite simply, that's the switch. And he realized that there was a low-level depression for a lot of his life, and sometimes more than low level. And so much of that was suppression. How do I be a good boy and not cause harm and not have needs and stay out of trouble and give people what they want? So giving people what they want is so much in the head, second guessing and putting on a good show. And that good show excludes him. What could be more depressing than being excluded from your own life? So that's the way that we switched it around. And he really got to know a different, that's not to say that the boy is wrong or the protector is wrong. The protector is so sharp and so wise, and all that information needs to be heard by the man. And the man in him can listen to this, take on the information, ground and respond. Because without him, there's panic, pull the rug, and we're going to survive. We know how to survive. Let's do Groundhog Day. You're safe and distracted, and that's the way it goes on. But the way that his eyes changed, his body changed, and it's like, oh my God, I'm allowed to be me in my life. Fine to do it inside, but now comes the practice. And when people, I believe, change in that way, the frequency, the vibe they put out into the world attracts opportunities, coincidences, magic, signs and temptation. And then it's up to it's life rather than to kill it. I don't know how to do that. Let's get back in control. Give me a drama, I know how to survive. So I hope setting it up that way has helped, and I haven't overcomplicated things for you.
Well,
It's really,
I'm gonna throw the cat amongst the pigeons here,
please.
because I was just about to ask, is this really, you know, like, I mean, we talk about vulnerability, and I hear you, and I really, like, I get that men have this thing, they need to be strong, they need to be the providers and all of that. But I come from a background where I learned to be that. I had to actually learn to be vulnerable. I was in a relationship with a man who was completely emotionally vulnerable and available, but I was the one who was holding up the fort, who was constantly going, I can handle this, I don't need anybody. And I was there for him. But when he was available to me, I wasn't, because I was the strong one, the one who was just pushing through. And it took a lot of work on myself to let go of that. And so again, I mean, what's vulnerability? You know, again, is it a thing that is gender-based, or is it something that we have learned at some point in our life, irrespective of whether we're boys or girls?
That's fascinating.
Absolutely nothing to do with gender, and I can so relate to that. As a little boy, I was my mother's first, my godmother's favorite, my grandmother's apple of her eye, and therefore not just the golden boy elevated away from the men and the other children, but also responsible for their emotions. So I was into second guessing, taking care, and giving love, and I was too scared. I didn't even understand the concept of receiving love. That was too vulnerable. If I wasn't providing something, then I could be disposed of.
Yeah.
And in a way, that was my fear. I didn't know how to do it. So I wasn't in love in life. I was in fear and putting on a good show. And that's where I was. That's the way I was programmed. It's all I knew to do. So the vulnerability came a lot later. And that's when I really felt powerful. And it's beyond the terror that I found myself, I guess, because I wish to take part in life and take the risks, because otherwise I'm not alive in my life. And it is same old, and me playing that role, little boy pretending to be a man, making it okay, and no one meets me, especially not me. So I would say, as that sensitive little boy responsible for the emotions of women, I was more feminine than masculine. And there were benefits in that, and there were costs. And as I've turned more into a masculine individual, one of the costs has been that my attention span has shrunk. And same as the men that I judged, what's in front of me is all that exists. And I can't remember everyone and everything and all the plates spinning and, you know, where I stand with everyone and how to juggle. It's gone. I can't do it. And I used to judge men for that. It's like, what, don't I matter unless blah, blah, blah. And that was my insecurity. But now, in the presence of someone here and now, I can quite honestly say that I love the three of you more than pretty much anyone, because you're in front of me. It's not like I'm going to save all my love for my wife or my mother or my best friend or some humanity non-personal thing. It's like here and now, this is where I am. Do I wish to show up with love, and do I wish to show up with fear? And
Yeah.
what I don't show up with is, I remember when I first, got into, found my voice and personal development and expression and all of that, suddenly life became my confessional. It's ridiculous. There's a time and a place.
I'm listening to you there, Kenny, and I'm just going to refer to my own situation for this topic because it's something that fascinates me. Because listening to you go from a feminine energy going into a masculine energy and losing your attention span, getting smaller and smaller. I've gone from a life where I ran things with an iron fist. I've gone from a life where my wife was extremely attracted to me because her father is ex-Red Army, Slovak Special Police, very, very straight, hard man. I've grown. I was going to say changed, but I haven't. So I'm still the same person. But I've grown. So I deal with things in a very different manner. I.e. today, I'll just give you an example of a story that happened that I promised Oscar I wouldn't tell anybody. No one will hear about it. But one of the things happened today, we're sitting in the school picking up the books and we're sitting there talking to the parents, and Oscar's jumped in the car and he just watched Austin Powers. And with mum, whether or not is age appropriate, probably not. Anyway, we're sitting there having a conversation and Oscar's popped up, thought he was going to throw in some humour. He goes, "Oh, guess what we're getting Dad for his birthday?" "What?" "Swedish penis enlarger." I'm like, okay, let's look at the scenario. The family that he said that to were probably one of the straighter families of the school. Younger daughter was there. At this point,
was at school. He said this in school, not at
This is school.
Oh my God!
So I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I'm going to be judged on this anyway, but I don't want to. I want to sit with this. Like old days. Like normal situation. Clip. What are you doing? What are you doing? Me? I was, no, hang on a sec. I'm going to sit with this. I said, listen, look, probably not the best thing to say, but anyway, it's out now. They said, yeah, goodbye. I'll see you later. And I said, yeah, come out of here. So what I chose to do is to take Oscar, drive him around the corner, sit down and break down the situation with him. And one of the things that we have between us is, always talk about opportunities, and we don't hide from anything. We talk about it. And I sat him down and I went through what the repercussions of actually saying that were and the responsibility he had by doing that, because he was grandstanding by saying that and he knew that would have a lot of punch. So I sat down with him and I said, mate, listen, what are the repercussions of this? I said, there's your friends. They've got the young sister there and the thing, the family. They're going to be a little bit judgmental about the way things are. You have trouble with mates as it is because, we're a little bit different. You speak about everything. You have a voice inside our house. You will always have that voice inside our house. I said, but today you went across the line. So you may not get to play with that child because they might be concerned that other things will be happening inside our house because, it's not okay for you to watch that. And I actually feel guilty about that. But I don't want to put my perception of me feeling like a bad parent on you. I actually want you to just to understand the situation and the repercussions of it all. So we broke it all down. And he's gone, bang. He sat with it and it really hurt him, and I said, listen, mate, there's nothing that we can change about what's been said. It's been said, it's out. I said, but what we can do is learn from this experience. And my thing with this is we have to learn. You've got to own this. And I said, what do you want to do with it? But we can talk to mum about it. We can share it with mum because you watch the movie with mum. I think it's suitable that we speak to mum about this. He said, no, I don't think that's right because we've got very different parenting methods. So I said to him, went through the whole process. And so there's the gates to the school. Here's the opportunities. We can accept it. You can tell me what the lessons are, repeat the lessons so that I know they're ingrained in you, which was really hurting him because he knew what they were. He knew how much it was hurting. I said, but when we go outside those gates, it finishes. We leave it here. It's not, but we have to deal with it now. Or we can take it out and I have to take it and we have to speak about it again because we haven't dealt with it. It's going to cause more pain. Big thing to put on a 9-year-old boy. but I'm letting him sit in the emotions and own his emotions. I wouldn't have done that years ago. I would have given him a clip across the head and then got angry with him. You know,
What
and
a lucky boy.
but
What a lucky boy for you to be able to break it down so he gets it and you own your part and he understands how to put things right and that he's not bad or wrong. And I feel that this is almost age non-specific because we all have little boys in us and or little girls. And very often we don't have other men to say, this is where I'm lost, this is where I'm stuffed up, this is where I'm scared and I don't know how to do it. And it's not fix me, save me, it's how have you done it? Or where did you stuff up so I don't have to stuff up? Or where's the hole? So we don't keep falling down the same hole and someone can just stick a sign there. But the way that you broke that up, that's magnificent. And to me, that's the golden opportunities of stuff ups.
I agree. And the thing with Oscar is in every situation, I don't care what it is, his only responsibility is to learn. Everything else is negotiable. Doesn't matter what the situation is, you have to learn. And I'm sharing this because I've had to learn to be like this. And a lot of what I'm learning comes from the Campfire Project. And this is not just me spruiking the Campfire Project. This is me listening. Sitting here today, I've got 3 people that I've learned so much from and that I love with all my heart. And to be perfectly honest, I feel guilty because I love you all and deeply. And yet I can't have that at home because I'm bloody scary to be around with that because I'm asking her to be something that she's not safe and I can't create that safety for her. That's for her to find. And I know that. And listening to you just then, Angela and Lisa, you know, like, do I have to leave her to get so that she understands that? Do I have to give her that pain? Because I love her enough to say to her, honey, I'm hurting you. It's not okay. How do I get around that?
Are you hurting her or is she in pain?
Both.
Are you sure that your intention is to hurt her and you're that powerful? Or does her pain belong to her?
Brilliant. Thank you. It is completely and utterly hers. It's not mine. I'm not responsible for that. But the reality is I have to wear that. Part of what I know, I know that I hold a safe enough place for her that she can give me all of her pain.
And it's her choice whether she does or not. And I believe that the safety you can hold is for the child in you and his needs for connection, love, safety, and to share that. And my fantasy of you is that much as with us, with the Campfire Project, you can be love and you've learned this, I wonder whether the truth at some level is that's who you were anyway, maybe a long time ago. And all you're doing is unlearning the stuff in the way. So you can be you again, so you can be love again, and so you can share with those who can receive you and take care of your child and his needs for those who can't yet and not take responsibility for that. And responsibility as a man, I believe, is the ability to respond internally and externally, where for me, responsibility as a boy is I need to stay out of trouble, I need to make everyone safe, and I've got the weight of the world on my shoulders.
It's also a question of intent, isn't it? I mean, if your intention is to do it in such a way that, you know, you are just fulfilling your needs and you don't care about hers, and you just take care of yourself, that's one thing. You know, that's, I mean, as Lisa was saying, when we come from that healthy place, we don't go, you have to fulfill my needs. I'm fulfilling my own needs, and I'm asking you to support my needs, but I'm not making my needs dependent on you. So this whole thing about, I don't know, Lisa, if you would agree, but when somebody says, you know, my other half, or I'm looking for somebody to make me happy, I just want to run for the hills. And so, I mean, this is one thing that I've learned in my marriage, and I'm divorced, is that I cannot stop my development just because somebody is hurting. I cannot stop, you know, protecting the relationship and shrinking just so that the other person doesn't feel that I'm challenging what is. Lisa, sorry.
I'd love to bring it back to Oscar, as a matter of fact, because one of the things that I've noticed with my daughters is that when I treat them in a certain way, I'm actually doing that for the little girl in me. So how I really, really wanted my little girl to be loved and honored and validated when she was little, like how I wanted to feel, is how I treat my daughters now. And as my daughters have grown, me giving that to them has been so incredibly healing for my inner child. Like, I cannot believe how that has just healed my inner child so much. And so you doing what you do for Oscar is actually you doing that for your inner child.
Yeah.
And if you turn that around, how would you feel like if Oscar was feeling a similar thing in a relationship? Like, if you're imposing what's happening with you and your wife onto Oscar and a relationship that he might be in, you know, like, because you're very clear when it comes to Oscar, like you're doing such a beautiful job at loving him and supporting him. And it's a lot easier to see sometimes when we're not looking at ourselves and when we're looking at a child. So, I mean, I think that you would give him some advice around that. You would give him some advice around feeling guilty, and give him some advice around, well, maybe not advice, but, you know, like I think that there's, for me, I've recognized in my life that I love people and I love them unconditionally. Not everyone can step into that field with me. And if I keep choosing to step into that field with them, then I actually feel a lot of inner conflict. I can be triggered. My little girl can be triggered. And I can feel not the joy of life that I normally feel. You know, and this is, and I'm not talking about you and your wife here. I'm just talking about the things that you know. And I mean, I don't know how you're communicating this and where she's going with her support. Maybe if she got different support and some other support to help her to actually start to think about the dynamics of relationship.
That's very interesting you say that, because that's sorry to laugh, but I'm like, I look at the conversations and, you know, look, it's really hard to take what I say not as an insult for her to fail, that she's failing, because she's already feeling hurt. So when I suggest to her, hey, listen, you know, reach out to Angela, reach out to Andy Bryce, reach out to Ellen, you know, and these are people she knows, and it's difficult, and it's because I'm making her fail again. So I'm going to reframe that. I want so badly for her to have a safe place that she can feel vulnerable, so then I can have that connection of, because one of my fantasies, Kenny, and I love the way you said that, is, you know, I said it to you, Lisa, I want to put my hand on your heart. I want to feel you. I don't want to just, you know, like, I can't wait for Angela to give you a hug one day, you know, heart to heart, you know, and it destroys me that I can't have that at home.
Beauty, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful that you and her have come together And what she holds for you is exactly what you need to see the fullness of who you are. Exactly. Right?
I couldn't
And
be
what
me
you
if she
hold,
wasn't.
that's right. And what you hold is exactly what she needs to see the fullness of who she is. It's beautiful. It's
So
the most
don't
beautiful
shrink back.
opportunity.
Step into it.
Can I ask a question of both Angela and Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
Knowing Scott and knowing the situation, if you were in her situation, what would you need and how would you respond to Scott? So if you can put yourself there in a way just so Scott gets it from the inside as women.
Do you want to go first, Lisa?
I'm trying really hard to put myself there.
Yeah.
Because I generally I'm sort of probably not a person that would think similar to that.
Mm.
But I think as a woman, and like, I think it would be pretty scary to be going, okay, I've got my shit happening, I've got my kid, I've got my house, I've got my work, I've got all this stuff happening, and now I'm being asked to do this as well. And I have to do this, otherwise my relationship is at risk, and that is really freaking me out. That's probably how I'd be feeling.
Mm.
I don't know. But I think that I would be feeling a lot of pressure to be something that I wasn't wanting to be. And some people, they have a process. Some people can never feel the depths of emotion that other people can feel. I don't think it's that they're not capable, but different personalities. I don't know.
Listening to you, I so get what you're saying, and that's valuable. And I wonder whether from her perspective, it might even be not, I don't know how to be that. It's more, I don't know how to do that. Because what's being asked is almost like a performance. Do this and things will be okay, or do that and we'll be closer and things will work out. And it's a doing thing where I feel the being maybe takes some safety to drop into, or some space to drop into. And that needs to happen maybe in her power, in her time, through her choice, rather than let's fix this. And inside, if that was me, and I've had a very recent experience of this with my best friend, actually, and the way that I was at him about something recently. And in the end, we just needed some space because it was just too heavy. And then my wife contacted him because I was in pain and he was in pain, and she contacted him and she said, Kenny can be like a pneumatic drill. How embarrassing. And she described her experience of me like that, and how it hurts, and where I'm coming from, and what I wanted, and how she navigated it. And we made contact, and we could meet in this place, but it wasn't about doing, it's about meeting my needs, meeting where we were, and giving space for this to pass.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, it's like I had needs and I wanted to fix this, and I wanted more, and I wanted to give more, and I wanted to share. It's like, wait a minute, steady on. We're going through Mercury retrograde letdown.
That is so intense for some people. Like I've had this experience mostly with men, when I get into my heart and I'm sharing this stuff, and they just go, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah. Can I just take a breath? Like, can you just stop for a minute? Just let me have a drink and stop talking to me. And I'm just like, okay, but I'm going to come back to it.
Threat. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, can't we just be together? Can't we just love each other?
So I think that heart energy is the heart energy can be very full on for people.
Yeah, and it's the expectation. I mean, when I heard Scott say, how can I make her feel safe? And I'm like,
you can't. You can't make her feel anything. You know, that's got to come from her. And so if you had said that to me, I would have gone, whoa, back off. You know, like, please, that is your expectation. I'm going to handle this in my own way. Let's talk about how we do this, but please don't put your process on me.
Yeah, because you rip her off of her journey. You're ripping her off of her journey if you're trying to do it for her in any way.
You can just focus on yours.
And for me, this reminds me of how enmeshed I used to be. And now I know that my needs, whether it's for myself or other people or the planet or whatever it is, they are my needs. And I need to take care of my needs. And I need to take care of my vulnerable child. And I need to own all of this. Then I'm available for those that wish to meet there. And for those that don't, I'm no longer a pneumatic drill.
Well, it's funny you say that, Kenny, because I'm listening and really trying to pay some deep attention to this, because Lisa sitting there saying, hey, has she got the capacity? And I look at that and I look at the opportunities, and she doesn't have the capacity to find the space. And the pressures of life, and especially at the moment with everything going on, and like I've decided since February to make sure that I'm the man at home. I made sure that I create a safety net for Oscar, because it's a pretty emotional time at the moment. We've just gone into lockdown again. He's nervous about it. Financially, things are tight because I'm not working. I'm not making money. I've got his emotional intelligence to me is everything because of what I'm learning. And it's so important for me to make sure that he's grounded enough to be able to take that responsibility. So there's other things there's other things at play, and I'm sorry to laugh, but I was just thinking of myself, I am that pneumatic hammer, because I'm like, hey, talk to me, don't leave me out of the dark here. I don't know what's going on. It's in your head. If you don't share it with me, I don't know what's going on. And she's probably sitting there, Christ, what else can I do wrong? And I get that, but the reality is, I've got wants and needs too that I need to get met. And part of those needs and wants that I need to be met are that connection. And if I can't get that, at what point? Like last year I left because it was too intense and I was putting pressure on Oscar and I couldn't handle that. So I went and spent some time, just went and stayed at my mum's for a bit so that I could get some headspace, so I can get some clarity and go back into the relationship. I didn't go to cheat. I didn't go there to be anyone else. I just had to go there for me. So I understand that. So, like I can imagine there's a lot of men, because I can't speak for women, that are in this situation where we're trying to find these answers. We don't know them. We can't talk about it. I can only speak from my experience. Do I hang in there? Do I not hang in there? It's her journey. I fully accept that. What are the repercussions for Oscar? Where are the strengths? Where are they not? And it's, I think she's one of the most amazing women I've ever met. She's, she's got the most gorgeous heart in the world.
Can I suggest something? Because I think when we're having situations like this in our relationships, we project a long way down the path. And all of those things you don't need to figure out. You just need to figure out what to do right now, because all those things will become very obvious when you start to follow your truth, whatever that may be. And one of the things that I've found really helpful is, how free do I want to be? How free do I want to be? And I look at the things that I hook onto that stop me from feeling the infinite peace and freedom that I am. And I decide, do I want to hang on to those hooks and those things that keep me out of that freedom?
That's going to take me into a much, much deeper question. That's probably not for today, but
no. But it's the freedom. It's how free do you want to be, and what's stopping you from being that free?
So as human beings, are we meant to be these free spirits where we can just really connect with so many different people? Or are we entrenched by society and what's meant to be with that one partner and love and entrench? Am I a product of society holding on to something that, you know, perhaps I should be letting go of? And that in itself is a whole nother question, because it's funny, you know, like I hold with absolute integrity my physical relationship with my wife. That is, I hold that with integrity. That's, to me, it's sacred. And it's because I honor her. I want to hold her. And Lisa and I have talked about it. My dream is to hold her in that light and let her feel my love and have it come back with appreciation, so I can be the man that I want to be.
I feel that you're saying right now, between the lines, until I do that, I can't be a man, or I can't be my man, or I can't be a fulfilled or a satisfied or a connected or a self-respecting man. And to me, that's enmeshed. I feel that your need is your need, or the need of your inner child, and it's got nothing to do with anyone else. And tell me to back off or if I'm being a bit harsh.
Mm-hmm.
But this is your relationship with you, and that's where it begins and ends. And when you are in alignment with yourself and your being is clean, just in alignment, then from there, they can be an extension to other people. They can be an extension of your doing. They can be an extension of love. They can be expressions. They can be whatever you want. But surely it begins and ends not only with you, but here and now. And here and now, I believe you're safe and everything's absolutely fine. Fear of the future, freak out from the past, fantasies, that's not here and now. But here and now is where it begins. And as far as as human beings, do you know, over the last few months, I've realized that I don't believe we are all human beings. I believe some are human doings, some are human wannabes, and some are so differently wired to me that I don't know if they're human or I'm human, but our wiring makes us totally different animals. And I'm not sure that our Venn diagrams have any common crossover. So it's individuals on individual paths. And I saved myself from my head with my fantasy of the cosmic bank account. I'll quickly tell you about my cosmic bank account fantasy. It's so got me off the hook with things. I chose to come here at this time to contribute certain things, to learn certain things, to unlearn certain things, and to go through certain pains and loves of people. That's choice. Then yeah, I'll come down and do that. That's my commitment. But as I come down, I can't bring my awareness with me, because if I bring all my awareness with me, I won't have my experience. So if that's the case, how am I going to remember? So this is pure fantasy. So if I can riddle my life with trauma and drama, then I'm fulfilling my connection with people and the things that we need to work out. And as I unlearn these traumas, I'll pick up my tools for my pathway and I'll walk my path. Now, that's my experience. I also believe that some people might be here to be absolute lard asses. They've chosen a rest life, which is also a very valid experience. Some people have come here maybe to be Instagram stars. Look at me, I'm so pretty and I don't have a lot of depth, but I can make a lot of money and hotels ask me to stay for free. In fact, they'll pay. That's a different life experience. Is it better than mine? Is it worse than mine? Well, no. And maybe what I'm learning and preaching and teaching and being superior about here and now, making an absolute arse of myself some of the time, these people who I judge as lard asses have in the cosmic bank account, and it's like, well, I don't need to do that. I did that like in the Stone Age experience.
Yeah. Which is why the only person you can focus on is yourself. You know, and give other people the opportunity to live their lives the way they want to. We talked about unconditional love before. I can't remember who said that. They just wanted, you know, that was unconditional love. That was really important. And that's the hardest thing, is we want to have that. We want to experience that. And then giving it to other people without the expectation that it's returned in the way that we want to be unconditionally loved. That's the hard part, you know, that, because that's what I meant by when there's a lot of expectation. And, you know, and letting go, that's the hardest part. And just being true to yourself. And I think that's everything we've said so far.
I'm just quickly on that, and I don't know what the time is, but we're chewing through it, because it's so, the conversation for me is just, but I was speaking with Oscar interviewed me today, and that's going to be put up on the panel. Now,
it's amazing. I listened to it.
Yeah.
I'll send it through.
Amazing child, yeah.
Because I didn't have anything to do with his questions. He got to choose his questions. He got to be completely open. And I tell you what, he hit me pretty hard with some pretty heavy questions. And one of them was, Dad, you give so much. Why can't you receive?
See, that's the story.
Right between
that's
the
the
eyes.
story.
There you go.
Between you and your wife.
Yeah.
I agree. So what?
Like that, and that's the story.
Boom.
That's vulnerability.
Yeah.
That is love. When I had to receive, I felt like I was doing the most ridiculous, stupid, out of sight, vulnerable thing. Now everyone's going to find me out, and no one's going to want me because I haven't secured my position that people can't do without me. That's not love, that's fear. But to be in love, to give and receive love, to be able to be chucked at a whim, that's where it's at.
Oh, I'm so in love with you three. I'm sorry.
that love that you experience, the freedom, like when you can sit in that pure freedom, that love is so different to the love story that we all think of is love. It's so different. It just pours out of our heart. Yeah. We don't even have to think if it's conditional or not. It just is, right? And it's not even a matter of, it just is. Mm-hmm. And it's freedom. It's absolute freedom.
Yeah.
Going back to Instagram for a sec, and I think people put things up there for me. I don't look at it. It freaks me out, actually. I believe that so much of Instagram and social media and capitalist society is, this is how to be good enough and continue being good enough and chasing being good enough, because when you feel good enough, then maybe you're good enough to connect and to be lovable. Where, as far as I'm concerned, cut out the middleman, be here, be now, be love.
Well, I would say that was the most perfect summary we could have wished for.
Sorry, I was just thinking the same.
So I would say, let's wrap it up. And because I know we could continue to talk about this for hours, but let's wrap it up for today. And I will continue the conversation pretty soon, I would hope. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna say, for Oscar's purposes, Oscar, I'm not drinking beer. You know what I drink? It's kombucha. Okay.
Good. Okay. Well, on that note, here's to health and happiness.
Can I just, before that, and I really want to thank you, Angela, and I'm going to let you have the last word. But
the last word. I just want to wrap it up.
I know, but this is really, really important, because I know there's some people watching these panels and they watch me and they've grown up with me and they've seen me they've seen me grow exponentially. All of that has been accelerated because I'm in a safe environment inside this campfire. I am so, so grateful for this opportunity to be the best version of me. Thank you to the three of you for allowing that. and holding space for me to be open and vulnerable. I really appreciate it.
There you go. That's the freedom Lisa mentioned, right?
You're amazing, Scott. Like, you're amazing that you can just sit here and just go, this is me, everybody. And like, that's amazing. That is absolute emotional courage that I respect so much. It's very cool.
Okay, is this a wrap up now?
Yeah, this is
Okay. All right.
Amen.
So thank you everyone. Thank you, Kenny. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Scott. And we'll see everyone soon.
Thanks, Angela.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela.